Hey guys, my name is Matsumo, and welcome to another episode of Monday Mailbox. This is a video series where you, the viewer, can submit your gaming-related questions, and then I will give my humble opinion on them. To get the formalities out of the way real quick, if you'd like to submit your own question that could be featured in an upcoming episode, you can do so by leaving a comment down below, or by sending me a Facebook or Twitter message. The first question today comes from Mac, and it is, do you like the new Hereford Base in Rainbow Six Siege? Should Ubisoft add back the old version, or at least have it as an option for casual? So I don't know what it is, but lately I've been hearing a lot of people with these same complaints, and I think it comes down to a couple of reasons. The first one's really obvious. A lot of people just enjoyed the old version of the map, but I think the main one is that the top floor just isn't well balanced, and that's basically where everyone starts on defense. As an offensive player, it is a nightmare to get anywhere near those objectives. It's wide out and open, which results in a lot of different angles that a defensive team can hit you from, and so moving from room to room feels like a monumental task because there are so many angles for you to check. You just feel very vulnerable when you're doing so. But also, there are no real windows that look into the actual objective rooms themselves. Now, the reason for this, I'm assuming, is because Ubisoft has had the policy lately that they don't want offense to be able to simply just jump in through a window and then plant the objective. And so I'm assuming that's the reason why they designed it that way. But because there is so much open space and there's so very few ways for you to actually approach the objectives, it just results in some really frustrating gameplay for the offensive team. And so I think that's one reason why people haven't really been too satisfied by this map. All that being said though, I don't really know if this justifies bringing back the old version. If they wanted to have it as an option for custom games, I think that that would be great. But one thing I think that they should always try to focus on, and for most video games, is to keep progressing forward. In general, I think the map is way more well balanced than the old version. If people are upset about the top floor, and I think they're rightfully justified, I don't think that means that the old version should be reintroduced, because that map had way more problems. Like, it just wasn't balanced. That was their very first map that they ever tried to add in a Rainbow Six Siege. That was their first map that they worked on, and of course they've learned a lot since then. And so what I would just much rather them do is focus on trying to improve that top floor. Maybe in a couple of seasons they can give it a map buff where they move a few things around, maybe make it a little bit smaller so there isn't so much open space, and if they were able to do that, I think a lot more people would enjoy the map overall. The next question comes from Josh, and it is balancing hurting Battlefield? Bad Company 2 and Battlefield 3 was the best moment in Battlefield history, and they were horribly balanced. Is balancing taken away from the fun? Well, to some extent, I do agree with you. Now, some people are probably thinking, what are you talking about? A well-balanced game is something that developers should strive for. If things are unbalanced and things are overpowered or underpowered, that's something they need to resolve. And while I do agree with that as well, I think one of the reasons why past Battlefield games like Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4 were so much fun was because they were more of a sandbox. This is actually one of the reasons why I think the Battlefield franchise excels in that modern setting more, is because there are so many more gadgets, so many different kinds of weapons and vehicles that are available, which just adds to that sandbox gameplay. If we look back at Battlefield 4, one of my favorite weapons was the straw. When the game first came out, it was one of the most satisfying ways to take out helicopters. One-shotting those things out of the sky was incredibly gratifying, but as soon as they quote-unquote balanced it so it no longer had that one-shot potential, that fun factor diminished pretty significantly. Now, some people will argue that is exactly what DICE should have done because it made it balanced, but I would argue that that took skill and it took some practice to be even able to do that, and even when you did practice, it wasn't like you were one-shotting things all over the place. It still was very, very difficult. So I would say that trying to quote-unquote balance the game reduced that fun. Now, on the opposite end of the spectrum, you had stuff like the UCAV. The UCAV was kind of a cool concept. It was a way for you to be able to take out recons on top of buildings, try to stop people from camping in one location, but as we all know, it eventually just turned into a tool where people just launched this from their spawn and took out people over and over and over again from the safety of said spawn. It was incredibly overpowered. And so if you took that same mindset that I had with the straw and you didn't nerf it because it was fun for some players, you would be left in a state where it would be just blatantly overpowered and ruin the experience for the majority of the people. And so I think the answer to your question is that balance is really important. If you don't address overpowered gadgets or weapons, it's going to become a problem. People are going to get upset and they might move on over to other video games so they don't have to deal with those imbalances. But having a wide variety of gadgets or weapons that are actually underperforming isn't always a bad thing. That adds more variety. It gives people something to strive after, or gives them a challenge to overcome. Now, to DICE's credit, they have added some things like that in Battlefield 5. The Liberator comes to mind, which is a secondary that only has one shot. I don't even think it can one-shot people from 100% to 0. It's literally just something to have in the game that's for fun, but I don't think it'd necessarily be a bad thing to have more of those kinds of weapons or more of those kinds of gadgets. The next question comes from Robert, and it is, what do you think about Ubisoft doing some quality of life updates for Siege and adding some different menu options? One idea would be a filter system for charms. I personally get charms a lot from alpha packs, and so when a new operator comes out or I want to change up a new one, I often find myself shifting through all the charms to find the one I want. It doesn't have to be the only change, but I feel as if some systems like this would be a good addition to the game. Absolutely. I do need to give credit to Ubisoft though, because they added in one of these quality of life improvements in this most recent update, where if you purchase something from the shop, there is now an apply all button. So if you just got a universal weapon skin, one of the Cecil skins, or a new charm, you don't have to go down through every single one of the operators, going through every single different menu to be able to apply that to all of your weapons. You can just hit the apply all button. So that is one nice feature that they added, but you're absolutely right when it comes to the charms. It'd be awesome if you could sort by rarity, sort by name. Maybe you could select some of your favorites, so you had a favorite section. Maybe there's like 10 that you can choose from. That way, you don't have to look through them all the time to be able to get the one that you want. What's funny about it is that this is the way that it works in the shop. They have these different filters that you can apply, because of course there's loads for you to choose from, but for some reason it's not in the ones that you've already purchased. Honestly, I think that the entire shop, the way that you select customization, is long overdue for an overhaul. The shop in particular hasn't seen changes in quite some time, and it kinda shows. It's obtuse, there's a lot of options that aren't really well explained. Why is it that when I select a skin in the shop, it doesn't show me the way that the skin looks in-game? Like, I wanna know how this looks. I don't wanna see the cool picture that you've selected. I want to see the actual model of the weapon. Why can't I see that from the shop itself? And so yeah, I absolutely agree with you. They definitely could make some pretty big quality of life improvements when it comes to selecting charms and really just the shop in general. The next question is, do you think that medics need a buff in Battlefield 5? Yeah, I would agree with that, even after this most recent update. Medics in the right hand and in a well-coordinated team on the right map can dominate. Their weapons destroy people up close. Like if you're using the Suomi, for example, like the MP40, like there are some weapons available to that class that are incredibly powerful. And if you use them properly and you are able to close the gap, you have a pretty big advantage against anyone that you come across. But on some maps where they are much more out in the open, it really does feel like you're at a pretty big disadvantage. Now, some people have recommended that they should have access to some of the semi-auto weapons like the M1A1, for example. And while I can see where they're coming from, because that would definitely improve their long-range capabilities, they would be much more effective at a medium distance, I don't really know if that's the direction that I want for Battlefield 5. One of the things that I never really liked about past Battlefields is that it always felt like the medic class was the dominant choice. Because even in Battlefield 5, they've taken it a step further where you need to rely on medics to be able to regenerate your health consistently and quickly. It just seems like if you actually gave them access to those kinds of weapons, that they would become overpowered. Now, maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, but if I had access to the M1A1, for example, which is my favorite weapon right now in the game, there would be no reason for me to play any other class. That thing destroys people at all distances. Up close, medium, long range, it struggles a little bit because its damage does drop off, but in general, the weapon is absolutely phenomenal. You pair that with arguably some of the most influential and powerful gadgets in the game, being able to heal your teammates yourself and, of course, revive. I just feel like that would take the medic to the next level and honestly just make them overpowered. And so all in all, I'm not really sure what the perfect solution is here. We want to make medics fun. They need to be viable, they need to be enjoyable, and I do think they need some sort of buff, some sort of enhancement, but I'm just not exactly sure how they should go about it. Maybe they should just keep slowly ramping up their medium range potential every single patch until they hit that sweet spot. I'm not really sure. And so let me know what you guys think. Do you think that they need to have access to a completely different type of weapon? Do you think that's not necessary? Do you think they should just simply upgrade the weapons that they have right now and make them more effective? Give me your guys' thoughts down below. The next question comes from Jeremy, and it is, am I the only person that gets error messages after finishing a game and I'm trying to find a new one, whether it be casual or ranked? Is it just me or other people having the same problem? You are not the only one that is having this problem right now in Rainbow Six Siege. The other day, I was playing with some friends and we were constantly getting disconnected and brought back to the main menu over and over and over again, trying to find a match. Now, thankfully, it doesn't seem to extend when you're into a game. No one was getting disconnected halfway through, so at least that's nice. But finding a game, at least sometimes, can be very difficult. And so I just basically wanted to select this question to reassure you that no, you're not the only one. Hopefully, Ubisoft is aware of the issue and they will be able to resolve it shortly. But yeah, guys, that is about it for today's episode of Sunday Mailbox. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you thought about what we discussed in today's video. Do you like the new version of Hereford Base? Do you think that it could use some improvements? Would you like to see the old one returned? Let me know down below in the comments. As always, if you'd like to submit your own question for an upcoming episode, you can also leave a comment or by sending me a Facebook or Twitter message. But until tomorrow, guys, have a good one and take it easy.